Hey guys, Sawtelle here. Welcome to part three of my of the saga of the six-part saga of the Sonic Archie comics. Now, I didn't get to do it yesterday because, well, I sent a trip by my friend down to Machias, but I'm here now. Now for this now for this now for this part, part of the saga, I want to talk about the comics that people seem to know the most, and how a lot of people see a lot of people know about the comics, and so I want to come down and see some of the best ones so far. In fact, there are some of the comic stories that you enjoyed growing up, and I get to hear some of it myself. Myself, and let me tell you, I never really heard about much of these comics until recently. I saw these people saying how much they adore the Archie comics. So yeah, I'm gonna take a little. So yeah, we'll go into some of the best moments from the comic series, and then maybe after that I'll do all some of the most wackiest things that were ever created for the comics. So damn it. So yeah, sorry about that. Now 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 as you know, the comics started out as one story always has one four stories per issue. One is seen as four comedic stories in one, which take place of the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon. There were no, they were always just wacky for kids. For example, there was this comic that parodied superheroes. You know about one? It was called But Butts All, folks. In this, in this one, it starts with a crab getting caught reading Sonic comics, so a bug decides to scream him for spare parts as a SWAT bot who brought him in. Because why not? I mean, Robotnik's evil at all, evil badass at all. Sorry about the language, because there is going to be a little bit of bad language in this, so be careful with yourself. Anyway, Robotnik then goes to a ribbon cutting ceremony for a toxic waste dump when Sonic shows up. So that happens. Robotnik's angry, so he set us out for Batman for Batman's help. Or in case Batman, if you will. No, I'm not trying to get that in the comic. Go see it for yourself. No, they fight, and when Sonic destroys it, Robotnik decides to be a Wolverine bot, but instead, Ed accidentally bought a Orko bot. Yes, yes. In the comics, there's actually a robot version of Orko in it. It also has a complete joke of how Julia White voiced Sonic in the cartoons. So yeah, there's also a Spawn parody and a bunch of walls, and you could get the picture that it was. In terms of the comic, it was just some wacky ass, lighthearted fun. One. Another one said. Another great example is there was a story where Sonic goes through the conflict in interstate, right? He ends up in the reverse universe. With the Spirit course, a character which you all know is Scourge the Hedgehog, an evil version of Sonic. There was this baffling explanation about an imaginary dimension line in the cosmic interstate, where your said good and bad get reversed. And eventually, Sonic finds his way home and saves the day and all that. Another issue was now another story that people seem to enjoy is Night of 1,000 Sonics. That's X High Noon. Now, in this issue here, a portal appears out of nowhere and a version of Sonic comes out. But this is half hedgehog and half cyborg. Yeah. So yeah, there's actually a robotic Sonic out there. Now, as I mentioned about this before, this character, which you all know. And he indicates there may be 1,000 other hedgehogs out there, so you can be surprised on that. Now, the cyborg hedgehog stated that he comes from a reality where the freedom fighters were captured by Robotnik and turned into cyborgs. However, However, this plan backfired and it ended up making them even stronger. And so in this universe, and so Robotnik decided to roboticize himself in a last-ditch effort and ended up becoming even more powerful, and is now threatening the safety of all universes. So, it's up to Sun and hundreds of versions of himself to stop this menace. During the same time, the Pine universes were also doesn't take into account with this new surprise. So he decides to team up with the Sun, which they're forced to accept. Yes, I'm not joking. Yes. Eventually, Robotnik has his own idea. Yes, and he summons evil Sonic from issue 11 to work with him. Yes. And so the Sonics made their way to the cosmic Edo state, right? And they headed into a cover of void neutral zone, where they find the Infinity Gauntlet. No, I'm not joking. There was actually an Avengers Infinity Gauntlet in a Sonic comic. Right. I guess Sonic whipped out Disney. Well, actually, Sonic did came first, so I guess that Disney Disney MCU movies whipped out the Sonic comic. I think. I don't know. Anyway, they find the Infinity Gauntlet, but evil Sonic steals it from them. And once Robotnik gets his hands on and unfolds and it encases a nice, huge robotic sign. Nice. Which he calls the Giant Board or something. The issue ends with a legion of Sonics working together to take it down, and Cyborg Sonic grabs Robotnik's head and heads back to his own dimension, never to be seen again. After that, the issue slowly shifted away from the 3 short, unrelated comedy stories per issue towards a long, continuous story, as well as developing a more serious plot. And during this time, several characters, Sally, Tails, and Knuckles were getting their own 3-issue mini-series to flesh out their characters more. And there's also 48-page specials released alongside with the comic, just in time for the new Sonic games. Yeah. Now, during the time back in 2019, I was dubbing some of the comics online, and the one that was totally crazy as was issue number 45. In this issue, Sonic collected his billionth ring and sent him on a trippy journey for the cosmos. I don't know what the plot of that was, but man, it's just so weird, really. I swear to God. Oh God. I mean, just look at this. I mean, there's even a panel where he demonstrates all of this. He says, "Wait a minute, that's the ultimate answer to all questions. This isn't real. But what about the chain? Is that where magic wings go when they leave a zone? Or is that where they first come from? When it spiraled around me, it like a triple helix. Couldn't our universe must be one strand of DNA at a huge cosmic entity? And that at that sea of emeralds, countless calmness, almost the chaos, manufactured yet individually beautiful, yet so green. Ow! All these metaphors. I'm so green. How all these metaphors are giving me a headache. That was the panel for the comic. I mean, I swear to God, that is what he said. No, this is so much intense. This is so intense for a Sonic comic. Yeah. And that's one of the stories that I seem to got in my Jumbo Sonic comic Sonic book for Christmas. This was where Sonic gets roboticized, issue number 29, which it's for Sonic almost wants to be roboticized by Robotnik and using one of the newly developed neutral overliers and be able to take this free will as a robot. Of course, the plan is unanimously rejected by the crew, and a bottle Sonic heads out and blows some steam off. But then, I don't know, well, he can... and gets captured by Mac and taken to robot. He is then roboticized, and Robotic sends Megasonic out to kill the freedom fighters. He intends to and gets into a fight with Buddy Robot, which is pretty awesome. And she's pretty awesome fighting him. Unfortunately, despite her being a hot robot herself, it's still not to stop Megasonic, and eventually just to overpower her. Almost overpower her. So doing all this, Tails puts out a distress call for Knuckles to show. But he's not much for Sonic either, and after getting defeated, Sonic decides to implement Operation Last Resort. It picks up at the 40-page special Mega Madness. Now in here, Mega Sonic is destroying it, and evacuating that hole. Unfortunately. And so they bring out a captured Whopper Sizer from way back, when it was good buddy and Nutty. And Knuckles will roboticizes himself, able to retain his free will with the use of Neo. They get hit, so they head back to now, and Mega Knuckles attacks Mega Sonic. They fight, and yeah, it's pretty sweet. I mean, it's Sonic and Knuckles fighting as well, but I mean, what more can you want? Really? So, after a while, there's a big explosion, and it was like, oh no! But it turns out the buffalo, Knuckles delivers a bit. It was the biggest son, who's in critical condition. And back to the freedom fight. It turns out that the overbonicizer is built with a force function, meaning it can an unroboticized one. Like the ocean, and well, as they could use it to turn back to normal. And it also turns out that Sonic's recently acquired brilliant Wayne has surrounded him with a protective mythical aura, so using this magic energy combined with Sonic's data sword and Sammy's computer, Sonic is able to regenerate into his original form. So Sonic wakes up, doesn't remember what happened, doesn't even remember being roboticized, and he sees Knuckles and is like, hey, you get out of here! And so he does. Now, in the ending, you'd think that everyone would be super happy and they celebrate, but no. They're saying, you disobeyed. Oh no, and now you're gonna go to jail. Seriously, that actually happens. I saw. So, and it leads up to the fight, and it leads up to part. And then it leads up about Sonic end up in jail. It's great, but they end up giving him 24 hours to prove his innocence. And she eventually does by catching Mac. And Mac. Man, that was really. It's really great to see how on top of that is. I mean, that was really great. I mean, who the fuck? But also a little bit of good comedy. During time, they did a lot of surprises. For example, there was a 2-issue crossover with Sabrina the Teenage Witch. They did a crossover on that. It's true. Almost like last decade, and when they crossover with Mega Man. They even did a Sailor Moon parody complete with Tuxedo Knuckles. Knuckles. Yeah, they did a Sailor Moon parody. And they also had a crossover with Image Comics. So yeah, to end with the Spawn model, there was an actual Spawn on crossover. Oh, yeah. So anyway, a lot of things continue to happen. They continue more of the backstory and more of the lore. And then it all leads up to probably the biggest surprise, the Endgame Saga, a Part 4 comic saga, which is surprisingly huge. I don't know what to say about this one. I know this might. That's the reason why I want to make this video, because I want to address this really quick. Maybe because, let me tell you, this is some a big surprise. I know it's gonna be but okay. So it begins with a dramatic catastrophic situation, and on it says it is the year 3225 on the planet Morbius, and the war being brought upon its surface, lands has entered its 11th year. A war that began as another had just concluded. A war that had its origins from the seeds of betrayal within. And I'm not joking, that is what it says right there. There. Surprising. I mean, this is really intense here. I mean, and number one is calling you, Stuffy. It's shit. Anyway, it continues on this. Warlord Julian has seized the power and authority of the House of Acorn, and exiled the king forevermore to the zone of silence. On which Julian became Doctor Robotnik and began the systematic conquest of the now renamed Robotropolis and all its inhabitants. It is now the eve of proved to be the final battle between the successors to the House of Acorn and its usurper. A battle for heroes and villains, winners and losers, those that survive and those who have fallen. Man. Man. Jesus, don't make it just sound like Game of Thrones. Okay. So anyway, it begins in issue 47. It begins with a routine sabotage mission by the Freedom Fighters, along with the resistance from the World Pack, some allies that they invaded in the previous issue. Now in here, Sonic and Sally are making their way to the target while the rest of the team stand by. However, Sally is feeling a little uneasy due to the recent development of her father, King Acorn, who had been suffering from a crystallization disease due to the time spent in the zone of silence. He has suddenly made a full recovery, and he stated, and he tells us that he believes one of the freedom fighters is a traitor, working with robotic, and he thinks that is Sonic. So he tells her to accompany him on the next mission to see where his true loyalties lie. However, she doesn't believe for 1 second and get that Sonic will never betray straight up. So Sally's preparing now, but just as he is, roboting, and to activate a bunch of moments to attack her. The Freedom Fighters managed to take but she's still in danger. They don't like a little bit. And they would look up and see Sonic. Antoine's like, I develop it at all. I don't know what that is. My life, I didn't think I would be so happy to see than Sonic the Hedgehog. Our princess is saved. And then he says, "Hey, what's this?" I didn't know what Sonic does then. And he takes out a knife and cuts the rope so basically the rope and he's how I fall down to the ground. So the crew freak out and rush over to help him out. During this time, we see Sonic confront Robot, and he escapes with it and is only left to deal with the laser trap. Yes. Meanwhile, the Freedom Fighters are skilled, but the doctor says that Sally is still alive, but barely. In the belly, her heart is failing me, so they need to take her back to the as soon as possible. The World Pack stays behind and covers while the Freedom Fighters power into a plane and fly back to the village, leaving Sonic behind. So Sonic shows up onto the rendezvous spot, but realizes everyone's gone and makes his way back to the hall all by himself on foot. Before long, at the Nato Medical Center. Long before at the Nato Home Medical Center. Until everyone's waiting. And all the news on Sally. And it's Waldo saying, we just have to hope no news is good news. That Dr. Crunch comes out. And Waldo's like, well, Doc? And the doctor, he's shaking his head. And the group, and everybody, they're all pretty upset. Especially Waddle. Sorry, I don't know. No, sorry, but his face just really surprises me here. So, Sonic shows up. He says, what's the battle? What's the battle? Then Jeffrey St. John comes in and says, that's... And Sonic says, what's the battle? And then he's immediately put under arrest by Jeffrey St. John. And apparently Sonic has no idea what's going on. But then it's Sean. But then he says, so he says, would someone explain what is going down? And Jeffrey says, you are, mate. You murdered the princess. And so, okay, so Sonic is like, okay, what's going on? Will someone explain to me what's going down here? And Jeffrey's all, you are, mate. You murdered the princess. And Sonic's like, are you insane? That's more interpretation, though. So, later that night, and we see Django, a member of the Wolf Pack, confront Mimi, needs when Nato resident Hoshi the cat. She says, Draco, what are you doing here? And he says, I wanted to see how you are, babe. It's been quite a day. She says, how did it go? Oh, like clockwork. The best of all. Oh, Lube and the rest of the freedom fighters haven't a clue what's in store. Oh, and he gets on until I'll have an evil one. Something big is happening. I can tell you that. Something big is happening. I can tell you that. Yes. So the next morning, the king asks Sonic and how he pleads, and Sonic professes that he's innocent. So the king doesn't believe him, but decides to spare him from the death penalty after all he's done for the freedom fighters. So he is sentenced to life imprisonment in a place known as the Devil's Gulag, as what Boddig watches. And at last, what Metropolis. Nice. Yes. And Boddig's laughing, saying, Sonic is finally taking the fall. Next, we have issue 48. It begins with Sonic in restraint. Being led to a point, still pleading that he is innocent. Sitting behind him is a character literally named Sleuth Doggy Dog, who was revealed to be a traitor in a previous issue. Sorry. Anyway, the plane is attacked by an attack, and it goes down, knocking out everybody except for Sonic, who goes nuts on the SWAT bots, which includes this legendary panel. Those are the last words Sonic utters. And not one single joke or wisecrack escapes his lips. For the first time in his life, Sonic is devoid of humor. For the first time in his life, Sonic truly understands the meaning of war. So, yeah. Anyway, Sonic won stuff, and then we cut to Draco pointed at the plane crash to King Acorn. The king is angry if we add St. John from Sonic in a way, who swears that he will catch him? So anyway, Sonic is running on it with some palm trees tied behind his shoes on his way in order to cover up his footprints. As it is high in for the spot and the sequence, he finds a shelter in it. Ever once the dead one, he will see Sally's body. We then have a flashback of when Uncle Chuck visited the doctor. He was told that he wouldn't let anyone see Sally's body in his final medical report. And after that, Sonic lays down on the ground and passes out. Now, meanwhile, back at now, Antoine and Buddy are wondering why the king is having private chats with Draco. They're trying to figure. Even though they haven't been going at the same point. So, they completely follow him. They completely follow him back to his home and back to the home in the Dark Hole Village. Yes, and they overhear him saying pretty shady stuff of the Hoshi, proclaiming himself to be a future Joker Global Metropolis, and thanking her for the help. She doesn't want to, doesn't appear to want anything to do. Though he almost dead, never about his escaped staying and his counter, and on St. John finding him and having them both eliminated in each other. Antoine are shocked by this turn of events, so they try to follow Draco, but he is one step ahead of them, and they catches them. And meanwhile, Sonic wakes up with the growling of St. John's tracking. There's also a bug planet in the shackles, which is being used to track him down. Now, he retreats deeper and deeper into the cave, but the rocky terrain makes it difficult to form up his speed. There's a confrontation between the two. Anyway, we return back to now. No. And King Acorn has decided to free the virus resistance movement has not yielded result. So he decided to reinstate the position of Warlord. His choice for the position is none other than Dr. Robotnik. Unlike himself. That's right, Robotnik finally shows up in now. With an army of robots, and he easily seizes control. Yeah. Yes. Back at the cave, Sonic and St. John are still in plenty of emotional symptoms. Insisted both loved Sally. St. John's all, "You murdered her!" And Sonic's like, "I didn't do it!" Then St. John is like, "You killed the woman I love!" And Sonic is, and you don't say, and then you only loved yourself. I loved her, and they continue to fight. Yes. We then have a moment literally straight out of the future, for St. John has him at gunpoint or crossbow point, right? And Sonic jumps out of the cliff. Okay, so you don't mind this kind of thing because my phone's getting a little so, but I'm gonna make it through this one. So yeah, issue 49, and it comes back to Sonic jumping off the cliff. And so in order to save himself at the fall, he takes out his shoe and grabs some dirt from his shoe and uses it to create a small land strip, and he then runs to the shore. This is absolutely madness, but sure, what the hell, right? Why not? So St. John orders his men to go back through the caves and continue the pursuit on Sonic, who is basically mentally exhausted. Meanwhile, back in that hole, Robotnik reveals that King Acorn was nothing more than a robotic duplicate. He explains that he is working on a new powerful weapon of destruction, and is going to keep the freedom fighters alive just long enough to witness every living thing on Mobius be annihilated. Dr. Quack is also to be working for Robotnik, but against his will, as his entire family was being held hostage. So So that's we cut back to Sonic, who's a little tired and needs to find his way back home. Now, and so the weirdest thing happens. He decides that he needs some help, so he whistles by vibrating his vocal cords extremely fast, creating a super high-pitched whistle, calling his best friend and fellow breeder rival, Dulcie the Dragon. Now, during this time, St. John sees Sonic escape on Dulcie and is pretty upset about it. Back in Hoshi's cottage, Draco is admiring himself in the mirror. Hoshi is all distraught that the princess was killed, and Draco slaps the crap out of her. And Draco slaps the crap out of her and telling her that she was the one who did it. And you see, it turns out that Sonic wasn't really the one who cut the rope, which killed Sally. Draco had convinced Hoshi to wear a Sonic the Hedgehog mask so she could get up with the mission. And this mask just happens to have optic image wavelength and was in the eyepieces, which to make it so you look like Snively. That's pretty bonkers, to be honest. So, anyway, back to Sonic. He wakes up on Darcy's back and about to land on the floating island. But literally before they even touch the ground, Knuckles jumps out of the bush and assaults him from daring set Fernando on his precious little island. So Sonic and Knuckles fight each other, then St. John comes in, and we don't know what's gonna happen next. It's a free-on battle between Sonic, Knuckles, and St. John. Who will win next? Find out in the 50th issue. Which happens then. Oh boy, let's get a little screen now. Next, we have the finale of the issue. It begins with a flashback to some important law Robotnik, back to when he was known as Julian. He's running away from some other humans who are apparently hunting him down. He's then found by Charles, Nurse, and Jules, Sonic's uncle and father. Apparently, the humans are now we all know about Mobius. The humans are, and the humans there are called Overlanders. And there was a war between the Overlanders and animal people. So the animals decided to change Junior back to the king, hoping that he will be a useful asset for winning the battle. Now Charles, he thinks his now for Jules, he thinks that led by an Overlander may seem a little fishy, but nonetheless, Junior leads the animals to the battle and an overwhelming victory. It was revealed that this flashback was actually a dream by the sleepy Robotnik. But back on the point on the island, Sonic, Knuckles, and St. John all go in a three-way battle. But then Darcy shows up and confesses swing straight. She says, "Enough!" She yells, "Enough!" And as you know, dragons cannot tell lies. That's why we could sense the purity of truth. And I know Sonic is not lying about being framed. Well, I guess anyone sees the video. Keo gets the Queen Knuckles, who says, "A dragon's spoken word is fact. Or is fact." Yeah, guess anyone's okay with this. Anyway, it apparently closes up the whole misunderstanding, and they all go back to Naho to fight Robotnik. So how about those? So anyway, they drop in an aerial assault and reclaim the privilege, destroying all of the SWAT bots. So Sonic spots Draco. Is like, "You," and Draco's like, "Who, me?" And he runs away. And he fast speed. Then Hoshi comes right up. He's the living crap out of for making complaint to Sally's model. So she's like, Scott, I don't want to stop it. So I'm going to that's all. So he tries to run up. So he tries to run away. Then she picks up a rock and she's like, "Oh no, oh no, you don't, you don't pack, and you don't get up, no, don't get off that easily." She throws the rock and boom, gonks him right on the rock and he falls down. Sonic shows up and she confesses this is about what happened, but he begins. So she says that she was already tricked into doing it. So anyway, Roboto wakes up in his phone that Sonic is liberated into that hole, which he doesn't seem to be concerned by his turn of events. So Sonic shows up to stop Roboto from activating the super weapon. And then with his super speed. Oh boy. But it's too late. Yep. Roboto activated his ultimate annihilator setup. As Sonic is about to see everything that he loved get destroyed. And so, no, hoping, and so, but everything about to come to an end, Sonic runs up to Roboto and say, "Hey, you better run, Robobot!" Like, and they both beat the living crap out of each other. Despite the fact that the Ultra Annihilator is now malfunctioning due to the bomb set by the N1, and it's about to totally destroy the world they're in, Sonic and Robotnik begin to duke it out. They don't exchange jokes or insults, they just beat the ever-loving crap out of each other. Shit at each other. Man, I'm losing it. After a while, the Ultimate Annihilator begins to go off, and we see the sketchy image of Robotnik and Sonic fighting, followed up by a completely white page. We don't know what happens next. When event Sonic revitalizes it somehow and collapses. He awakens several hours later in the medical facility. And now, when Sonic wakes up, he freaks out. He's like, "Oh my gosh, what happened? I saw I'll get destroyed." And Walter's like, Don't worry, it's not destroyed. We know it's in a typical with 3 hours in the future. No, as long as like, okay. Yes, well, anyway, in terms of while being forced to work for Robotnik, Dr. Crack noticed that Snively sabotage the Ultimate Annihilator programming into event only one specific pattern, Robotnik. Instead of what was originally programmed to be. He also reveals that Sally didn't actually die for the phone. No. But he lied about it and placed her in a tube disguised in a remote so she could have a couple. She says that she's alive but in a coma. It doesn't say alive but in a coma. She said, as long as like, really? She's alive? And he's like, yes, he's always in a coma. And I couldn't tell you when or issue will come on. But and so Sonic's like, what the heck do I do around here? I gotta see her. No. And you know what that means? Yes. But just like Stowaway, he walks up to the coffin, opens it, and says, "I love you, Sally," kisses her, and then she immediately wakes up saying, "What did you say, Sonic?" And they both share a kiss. And that was the end game saga. And let me tell you, it's really great. So it's really nice to see how it worked out well in the end. So yeah. Okay, now let me tell you, that was so cool. No, I cannot go on anymore about on said. I know my voice is always a little it's getting a little dry and foggy, so I'm gonna end this here. But but don't worry, I have 3 more parts left. It's gonna be a 6-part saga of the comic. So I hope you enjoy it. And I may have a temporary hiatus because my phone was always a little sore from the talking I had to do. But if you like it, go down, subscribe, leave a like and comment. Think if you like the first 2 parts, go down there and see and look for yourself. Go to Wikipedia about the page I got the info. Also also, if you want to see the continuity of the original Freedom Files, you can go down. You can go to the website. You can go to this website called Archie Sonic Online. Like, it's the most way past cool fan comics you could ever see online. Well, I'm gonna wrap up here. I hope we'll be back soon. I'm Sawtelle, and I'll see you guys next time.